we doing, guys? Welcome to the CEO Sports Show for August 14th, 2025. And on today's episode, we will be talking about Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. I'll be talking about my expectations for the Dallas Cowboys this upcoming season. And we will also be talking about, dude, I got to get better with remembering these damn topics. Talking about Matt Stafford and his injury that is keeping him out of camp at the current moment. So before we get into the episode, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. I would greatly appreciate that. And without further ado, oh yeah, by the way, make sure to check out the Stadium Pulse and the mic drop here on Kretschman Media. I would greatly appreciate that. And without further ado, let's get into the episode. Okay, so I want to start this off by talking about Lamar Jackson. I am a big fan of Lamar Jackson. I think that Lamar Jackson is a top 3 quarterback in the game. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks of his generation. But when are we going to start holding Lamar Jackson accountable for these playoff losses? I'm sorry. The Ravens, they have a really good team. This upcoming year, they have a really good team. If they can't get over the hump, or at the very least, I should say this, if they go into the playoffs and Lamar Jackson doesn't play up to Lamar Jackson standards like we know he can, I'm out on Lamar Jackson. He, to me, is still a guy that I would look at as a top 5 quarterback. I would look at him the same way I looked at James Harden in the NBA. He's a fantastic player, but when the moments are the biggest, he does not perform at the highest level. I'm tired of acting like Lamar Jackson doesn't have this fantastic team around him. He has a really damn good team around him. He has not taken advantage of some really good opportunities. You could say what you want about the Zay Flowers fumble on the goal line, but I could also say, okay, if they score that touchdown, they would have scored 17 points on that game. We know that Lamar Jackson can do more than that. Josh Allen, when he plays the Chiefs, he's putting up damn near 30 points every single time when they're in the playoffs. Lamar Jackson would have put up 17 in that game. Lamar Jackson in that Bills game did not play well in the first half. Why do people forget about that when they talk about the playoff game that they had against the Bills? He did not put his team in the best position to succeed. And they lost that game because he did not play well enough in the first half. I'm a big fan of Lamar. I think he's a fantastic quarterback. I really do. And I want him to succeed. I hope that he gets over the hump and he does what he has to do to silence the critics. And you could think that I am being one of those critics, but at the same time, I'm holding him to a standard because he deserves to be held to that standard. He is a 2-time MVP, and he has not played like the MVP we've seen in the regular season in the playoffs. And my biggest problem with this is that we hold all these other quarterbacks accountable for their playoff losses. We say Dak Prescott can't be a top 10 quarterback because of his playoff performances. When Kirk Cousins was playing at a high level, he couldn't be a top 10 quarterback because of his playoff performances. We say about Justin Herbert, he can't be looked at as one of the best quarterbacks in the league because of his playoff performances. But there are people who look at Lamar Jackson as the best quarterback in football, knowing that there is a quarterback out there in Patrick Mahomes who has 3 Super Bowls. There's a quarterback out there in Josh Allen who has similar statistics to Lamar Jackson, has just as big of an impact on his team as Lamar Jackson, and who has showed up and played really big in the biggest moments. You cannot use the falling playoff performance against Josh Allen because we use that for other quarterbacks, but we still say that Lamar Jackson is a top 2, top 3 quarterback, which, by the way, I actually do think that Lamar Jackson is a top 3 quarterback. We still say that even though he has not played at his highest level in the playoffs. He has missed out on opportunities to get the Baltimore Ravens where they need to be in the playoffs because of some of his performances. So, look, Lamar Jackson, can he do it? Yes. And that's why I'm going to be critical of him, because he can do it, because he is that talented, because he is one of the best quarterbacks of his generation. But I'm also going to hold him to a standard, and I'm drawing a line in the sand. If Lamar Jackson does not play well in the playoffs this year, and I mean like really well to the point where like, okay, if they lose, you could say it's not really his fault. And that means 4 quarters of football. That does not mean 2 turnovers in the first half and putting your team in a bad situation. That means 4 quarters of efficient and effective football. And if your team loses, then I can't look at you and say, okay, he can't get it done, right? The team's good enough. Tired of making excuses. I'm tired of the excuses. This is, to me, when you compare their roster to other rosters in the NFL, where would it rank? Like outside of the quarterback, where would it rank? Like it's high up there. It's very high up there. I mean, I guess you could say, we'll see what happens with Philly this year. They lost a lot of talent. Minnesota is a really damn good roster outside the quarterback. Like some of these teams that you look at and you can make the case, but you could easily make the case that the Ravens are the second most talented team in football. Well, to me, I think that they're the most talented because you could say that outside of Lamar, they have maybe the most talent in the NFL, and they got Lamar Jackson at quarterback, who is, I'm not a Lamar Jackson hater. He is one of the 3 best quarterbacks in the league. And if you have him at 2, that's fine. I'm cool with that. And you want to know what? I'm willing to give him a pass, but this year, he's got to make sure that he plays at the highest level in the playoffs, because I'm just so damn tired of it, because he had an excellent season last year. Excellent season. Played well against the Steelers. Then played the Bills first half, put his team in a bad situation. Played very well in the second half. There's 4 quarters of football. And I want to see him play better in the playoffs. I really do, because I want to see Lamar Jackson silence the critics. And I don't want to be one of the critics that he has to silence. I don't want to be that guy, because I really, really enjoy watching this guy play. But I'm not going to let people hold other quarterbacks accountable for their playoff woes and not make sure to remember that guy you got as some people, the best quarterback in the game, the second best quarterback in the game, third best quarterback in the game. Let's not forget that he's got to play better as well. And if we're going to hold these guys accountable and drop them in rankings, make sure we're doing the same thing with him. Because that's what I hear, right? Like just, the regular season. Some of these quarterbacks, they're just great regular season quarterbacks. Why can't I say the same thing about Lamar? Lamar's a great regular season quarterback at this point. You could say the same thing if you really want to say that. That same thing applies to Lamar. Like, I'm not a Windsor quarterback stat guy, but again, there are people who use that metric against some quarterbacks and don't use it for Lamar. Now, look, I don't think that, there are people who don't like Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson absolutely has haters, but he, to 97% of NFL fans, when you talk about the top 4 quarterbacks in the game, the elite quarterbacks, those tier 1 quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson's name is always brought up in it. So whether you think that he gets unfair criticism, people still rank him in the top 4. And a majority of people rank him over Burrow. And there's a lot of people who rank him over Josh Allen. And there's some people that rank him over Mahomes. So if he's going to be ranked at number 1 over a guy in Patrick Mahomes, who has played very well in the playoffs, and Josh Allen, who's played very well in the playoffs, he's got to play better. And I'm not going to let up on Lamar, because he deserves to be held to that standard. And if he doesn't reach it, I'm going to just start to say, I'm kind of out on the guy. Even though, I don't want to be one of the Lamar Jackson critics, because I'm just such a fan of him, but he's making it, he makes it hard sometimes when you talk about some of his playoff woes. But that is it for that topic. I want to talk about the Matt Stafford injury and the Los Angeles Rams. I want to go over this write-up from Mike Florio on Pro Football Talk. Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford was supposed to practice on Monday as he eases his way back from a back problem. When he didn't, nerves became frayed. They're still frayed today. Comments from assistant head coach, passing game coordinator Aubrey Pleasant will do nothing to unfray them. No update on Matthew, Pleasant said. But what I will tell you is it's very tough for not only him and for the organization. I would say that he's trying his best. That's what makes it even more concerning. We're 3 weeks and 5 days away from week 1. Stafford still can't practice despite his best efforts. And if Stafford can't play, the job will fall to a veteran who was once, for a little while, the highest paid player in NFL history. You have a Super Bowl contending quarterback like Jimmy Garoppolo, who we played against, and now we have to deal with him in practice, Pleasant said. I'm really impressed more than anything of our offensive staff catering an offense to what Jimmy can do very well, while still understanding that this is Matthew's team as we continue to move forward. It may be Matthew's team, but Matthew still can't go. They'll need to be ready to run the Garoppolo version of the offense until Stafford returns. I think that the Rams are Super Bowl contenders this upcoming season. But if Matthew Stafford is going to struggle with injuries, I'm going to have to take that back, because that's what this all depends on. Matthew Stafford, to me, is a top 5 quarterback in the game. We talk about the top 4 quarterbacks. We all know who we're talking about. But number 5 to me is Matthew Stafford. And when you have the type of play caller that Sean McVay is, with the receivers that the Rams have, that's a team that can win the conference and potentially win a Super Bowl. But if Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be out there, now you're talking about games that you'll probably lose because of Jimmy Garoppolo instead of having Matthew Stafford out there. And now you're talking about not getting the number 1 seed and having to go to, let's just say a Philly again in, January, where we all know what the weather was like in there. You want to play them in Los Angeles. You want them going from Philadelphia to Los Angeles and not Los Angeles to Philadelphia. Or you're going to Minnesota, where obviously they won last year. But again, you would prefer to play in Los Angeles. I just think that Matthew Stafford obviously is at a point of his career where he is a bit older, but he's still wildly talented. And do I think the Rams can win some games? If he were to miss, let's just say 8 games, right? Not saying he's going to miss that, but let's just say hypothetically he does. Can they go 4-4 with Jimmy Garoppolo and Sean McVay calling plays? Yeah, I think they can. But 4-4 with Jimmy Garoppolo would probably be 6-2, 7-1 with Matthew Stafford. And those games make the difference, right? Especially, in an NFC West where you're talking about the 49ers, who I don't necessarily think are that good, but they have an extremely easy schedule. So they're going to get bailed out by that. And, they're going to be able to really stack wins and put pressure on the Los Angeles Rams. And that makes you think, okay, if let's just say, for example, that hypothetical that I came up with, that Matthew Stafford misses 8 games. The 49ers, they're going to win a lot of these games because they're just playing a lot of bad competition. It's one of the easiest schedules that we'll ever see. And I do think that the 49ers have enough talent to win 10 to 12 games with the type of schedule that they have. Will the Rams be able to win enough games without Matthew Stafford to put them in a position to win the division? I still think they do, just because I think they're a better team than the San Francisco 49ers. But part of the reason why I think that the Rams are Super Bowl contenders is because of Matthew Stafford, right? Like, they have a really good roster, but when you have a quarterback like Matthew Stafford who can swing the rock the way he can and elevate the guys around him the way he can, now you talk about a very good roster to a great roster because of the quarterback. And again, if the quarterback's not there, that is a big time problem. And now here's the thing, right? It's still August 14th, right? Like, when will Matthew Stafford be back at practice throwing the football? You hope within a week and a half. That's what you hope. And at that point, he'll have 7 days for practice. It's not ideal, but Matthew Stafford's been with the Rams long enough, and he's been with Sean McVay long enough that he knows the playbook at a high level. He already has a rapport with Puka Nacua. It's going to be more so getting on the same page with Davante Adams. But I mean, you're talking about Matthew Stafford, who is a fantastic quarterback, with Davante Adams, who is one of the most cerebral wide receivers. They're both very cerebral players at their positions, right? So I don't think it's going to be that big of a hurdle getting on the same page, but it's something that you would prefer that, week 1, right off the bat, that they're on the same page and they're clicking, right? So that to me is like, when you talk about the contenders in the NFC, like I said the other day on the show, the Rams, they're my favorites just because I love the offense that they built. Obviously, the head coach is fantastic. He does a really good job with his play calling, but the defense I think is really underrated. And I think they did things for their defense to really improve some of their weak spots. Like they were awful against the run last year. Well, I'd have to look that back, but I know like when they played against the Eagles, they couldn't stop a nosebleed. That to me is not just the Rams. That's pretty much every team in the NFL. But they went out and they got Poona Ford, one of the best run-stopping defensive tackles in the NFL. Like that's going to me, cover up some of the areas that maybe they struggled with last year. And that's going to really, make me think, hey, it could be different for them this upcoming year. And obviously we know that the Rams can win a Super Bowl because we've seen it with Matthew Stafford, with Sean McVay. And I would say this, obviously defensively, the team isn't better than what they were back then, but I think offensively they are. I think offensively they're better now than they were in 2021. Like I personally believe that. And it's because of the two receivers. Like I think to me, Devontae Adams is the best receiver on that team. And I know Puka Nacua is a very good wide receiver. I just think that Devontae Adams is better than him. And I think that Devontae Adams, he's a type of receiver where like he ages very well because of the way he plays and because of the nuance that he plays with and his ability to run routes at an extremely high level. And man, like I'm just so high on the Rams, but it all depends on Matt Stafford. And if he can't play, it's going to be a problem. And he has struggled with injuries here in the past few years. And you just don't want to see that. You want to see Matthew Stafford on the field playing at a high level because that's just better for the game of football, right? When you have a quarterback like that playing at a high level, he's healthy. He has the type of weapons that he has with the play caller he has. That to me is a recipe for something really special in Los Angeles this year. And I think that they have a legit shot to win a Super Bowl this upcoming year. But I'll say it again, it all depends on Matthew Stafford's health. So we're going to move on to the next topic. But before we do, please make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. The channel has been, not just the channel, but the network as a whole, Kretschman Media, very impressed with what we have been able to do through the first 2 weeks here. And yeah, we're only going to be growing from here. We have some fantastic shows on the network. We have, the Mic Drop and the Stadium Pulse. You can find them on the homepage of the CEO Sports Show YouTube page. And we're also going to start linking these in the description so that you guys can check them out. Make sure to check us out on all social medias as well. The CEO Sports Show, Instagram, TikTok, obviously here on YouTube. We're going to start an X page very soon for this. And that's how we're going to handle that. By the way, next Saturday, I believe, is the first college football game of the year. I can't wait for that. Kansas State versus Iowa State. I don't know if I'm going to go live after that game to recap it. I'll talk to Tegan about that. Maybe we can work something out to where we have a little bit of a recap show there. And that's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, I'm just, man, look, I'm so excited for the season. I think that this is going to be a great football season. And, come basketball season right now, we are in the really slow period of the basketball phase. We'll see what happens. Maybe there is some news that comes out for basketball that, we can chop it up and talk about. But, for right now, obviously it's, the slow part of the basketball off season. But, come October, come September, we'll really be talking about basketball. And not only that, we're going to be having a show on the network talking about basketball. So to all the basketball junkies out there, you'll be able to get your fix. So I want to move on to the Dallas Cowboys here. I feel like the Dallas Cowboys are getting slept on for this upcoming season. I look at this team as a 10 to 12 win team this upcoming season. And a majority of that comes from the fact that I think their offense is going to be one of the best offenses in the league. I think they're going to have a top 3 passing attack in football. And part of that is, yes, obviously Dak Prescott, very good quarterback. They have, outstanding receivers on the outside. But I think this offensive line is going to be better than it was last year. And I think that this could potentially be the best offensive line that they've had since 2021. When you go back and watch some of the tape of the Dallas Cowboys passing game last year, they struggled with their deep passing attack because they struggled holding up in protection, which is part of the reason why I actually thought that it was a good idea to pick Tyler Booker in the first round. Not only that, former head coach Mike McCarthy thought that it was a really good idea to do that as well. And I think it's because he saw the same thing that, I saw when it came to this passing game, is that they weren't able to hold up in protection. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. I think that Guyton's going to take a year or two step. I think he's going to be a good starting left tackle this year. I think Tyler Booker is a plug and play guy. Obviously, you have BB and Tyler Smith in there on the interior. They're going to have one of the best interior offensive lines in football. You got Jake Ferguson being able to make plays, Kevontae Turpin. We'll see what happens with the running back room. The running back room right now, you got some guys, Jadon Blue, they're expecting big things from him. Miles Sanders, Phil Maffa, maybe Javonte Williams. So their offense has a chance to be exceptional. And if their offense is really good and they can put points on the board, their defense is going to be elevated. Their defense is going to look a lot better than it probably has any right being, because of the fact that they're going to be able to rush the passer. And once they get Diggs back healthy and they have Bland out there, they're going to be able to take advantage of that. If this offense is playing really well, they're going to be able to get after the quarterback. And, if they're able to get after the quarterback, and they're able to get pressure on the quarterback, these quarterbacks are going to start throwing passes where, hey, we could take this back to the house. Trayvon Diggs, pick six. Deron Bland, interception. That's the type of defense they could potentially have. Now, I do worry about this team when it comes to, are they physical enough on the defensive line, right? So in previous years, I've said about the Cowboys that, they have an identity, and is their identity good enough, or is it reliable enough to take it into the playoffs with them? And I don't believe it is, because their identity has been, let's throw the ball 40 times, 7-on-7 type stuff, and let's get after the quarterback with our pass rush. Now, here's the thing, right? I know a lot of people like to crap on Dak Prescott, but it is really hard to play 4 good games of football to the extent that you have to elevate your team to the extent that Dak Prescott has had to get over the hump, right? I don't think the Cowboys have had a good run game, or a great run game, since 2019. And even in 2019, right? When you talk about that playoff game that they lost to the Los Angeles Rams, they couldn't run the ball to save their lives. So I think that next step for the Cowboys is, if they really want to make noise in the playoffs, they have to run the ball effectively, and they have to stop the run effectively. And those are two things that they haven't been able to do in these playoff games. And if they're not able to do that, it doesn't matter who they play. They're going to really struggle with playing the type of game that they need to get to where they want to be. Now, what is the ceiling for this Cowboys team? I personally think the ceiling is the conference championship game, just because obviously they do have the first year head coach in Schottenheimer. I want to see what Schottenheimer can do as a head coach. There's some new pieces on the team, and I do think that some of their flaws, it's just, you look at it and you're like, oh, that might be bad. But I will also say this, when you look at this roster, their cornerback room right now looks awful, but it might not be like that for the rest of the season, right? You have Deron Bland, who's healthy right now. Kaiir Elam has been making a lot of plays in camp. But the thing is, here's my thing. I am actually optimistic about Kaiir Elam because of the receivers that he's playing against in practice. They're some of the best receivers in the game when you talk about CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. So the fact that he is having a good camp guarding or defending those guys, I will say that does give me cause to be a little more optimistic there. But also, I did see him in Buffalo, and he was disappointing in Buffalo. So there is that. But yeah, Diggs comes back. Diggs, he might not be the elite corner that some people thought he was, but he is a very solid starter. They have their rookie Ravel coming back. So, this might be a situation that by mid-season, we look at it like now and we're like, their cornerback room is awful. And then mid-season, you may say, do they have the best cornerback room in the game right now? Like, that's the type of jump they can make with some of these guys coming back from injuries and some of the players that they have that you kind of hope take that next step and become, a quality starter for them. But, like, to me, a lot of this comes back to the coaching staff, right? I believe in Schottenheimer. I think that he's going to be able to dial up plays for this offense. I believe in Matt Eberflus. I think that he has called some very good defenses in the past. Clayton Adams is the offensive coordinator. He's fantastic. Connor Riley is the offensive line coach. He was at Kansas State. Kansas State always has really good offensive lines. So there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about this team. Now, obviously, we know the whole Micah Parsons situation is something that you look at and you say, that might be something that, we have to look out for, because their defense might be like very bad against the Eagles week 1. But I think that their offense could potentially, like, to me, offensively, this is like a perfect matchup for the Cowboys against the Eagles, right? Like, they can hold up in protection, which I think they can, even though I know that they have Jalen Carter on the interior. I think they're going to be able to hold up there because they have such a strong interior. They have to me, the best guard in the game in Tyler Smith, and they have a rookie, Tyler Booker, who is a plug-and-play player who I think will at the very least be a solid player. Like, I don't think he's going to get flat out baptized by Jalen Carter, like me personally, just because I think they're going to do a lot to give him the help that he needs going up against Jalen Carter. And I don't think the Eagles pass rush is that good. So, and not only that, people may not want to hear this. You can go at Quinyon Mitchell, but that's a topic for another day. So, but defensively, their matchup there, it's going to be difficult for them. It's going to be difficult because Eagles are one of the best rushing attacks, maybe in NFL history, but we'll see what happens there with their offensive line. If Dickerson's playing that game, they lost Becton. He was a very big part of that offensive line. So, you don't know. Yeah, but I mean, without those guys, I still think it's going to be really difficult to hold up against the Eagles' run defense. But, I'm getting off on a little bit of a tangent there, but I just think that ultimately this Cowboys team, it's getting slept on, but I think they're probably a year away from a Super Bowl window opening if they're strategic with some of the moves. That means re-signing Micah, Tyler Smith, Deron Bland, George Pickens, which, by the way, they can afford all those guys because they don't sign anybody from the outside, right? They don't sign any outside free agents, so they have the capital to afford all these guys. So overall, I'm optimistic about the Cowboys. I would say when you look at the contenders in the NFC, I think that they're like a tier 2 team. Like, obviously you have your tier 1 teams when you talk about the Rams, the Eagles. I think the Vikings, McCarthy has to play good football, but I think that they are a tier 1 contender. And then tier 2, I think that's when you get into the Buccaneers, the Cowboys, the Packers, the Lions, teams like that. So, yeah. That is going to be it for the episode. I would just like to say thank you very much for coming out and supporting the show. Please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. And we have 2 shows today. We have the Mic Drop with Benjamin Garcia, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We have the Stadium Pulse with Mr. Tegan Randolph at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So please make sure to go check that out. And that is going to be it. Enjoy your Thursday, guys. Friday is almost here. We're almost at the weekend, and I hope you guys have a good Thursday. I will see you guys in the next episode.